Chapter 262. The Exciting Battle. Although a quasi-invincible powerhouse could withstand it for a while, they wouldn't be able to support it for long. And only powerhouses that had reached the invincible level could roam through it without any fear. The four Kangchon people were even more needless to say. For them, there was no difference between the second layer and the first layer. This second layer is nothing more than that. Those quasi-invincible powerhouses should be able to cross it easily. If they have some defensive treasures, it seems that the truly powerful one is still the third layer. I'm starting to get a little curious. Little Gold laughed. The four of them continued to advance. The surroundings were burning with gorgeous blue flames, like a brilliant firework, dreamy and beautiful. Suddenly, Kangchon frowned and stopped in the air, no longer advancing. What's wrong? The three little golds instantly flew back to Kangchon's side and asked strangely. They always felt that Kangchon was hiding something from them, especially after entering the endless sea of fire. There was something not quite right with Kangchon's complexion. It's fine, let's keep moving. Kangchon shook his head and continued flying towards the front. The three little golds glanced at each other, all seeing the suspicion in each other's eyes. Clearly they had all noticed that something was wrong. Strange, Brother Dao's state isn't right. Van Xin frowned. He seems to be looking for something, the third prince of the dragon murmured, and then he swung his huge body and wandered through the air, chasing after him towards Kangchon. Little Gold and Fan Xin glanced at each other and both followed. What the hell is going on with Brother? Little Gold's heart was filled with doubt. It was the first time he had seen Kangchon in this state. They didn't know that at this moment, huge changes were occurring within Kangchon's body. The surging Kangchon hegemonic blood in that one thick meridian was boiling violently, bubbling with power as if it had been boiled. Kangchon used all of his body's strength to suppress these Kangchon hegemony blood, which was why his complexion was a little off. I feel like it's getting closer. What exactly is it? It's actually capable of triggering my Kangchon hegemony blood, causing me to involuntarily erupt into my strongest fighting state. Kangchon's deep eyes stared ahead, his heart filled with doubt. Ever since he entered the endless sea of fire, that feeling of his had become stronger and stronger. And especially when he reached this second layer, it reached a limit, causing him to almost burst into his strongest fighting state once again. But fortunately, he suppressed it at the critical moment. At this moment, as he continued to fly forward, that feeling of his grew stronger and stronger, and the Kangchon hegemony blood in his body was also boiling more and more, starting to somewhat make him unable to suppress it. Of course, this wasn't a bad thing. On the contrary, that mysterious power would boost his strength a lot, like a stimulant that would allow him to reach the limit of his battle power. Only, regarding this strange feeling, Kangchon was very curious in his heart and desperately wanted to know the original reason. When was there a palace here? Suddenly, a surprised voice came from the third prince of the dragon from the front. Kangchon's gaze looked over, but he saw that not far ahead, a dark golden palace sat amidst blue flames and white flames, which had a peculiar feeling that made people pay attention. White flames. Is this the dividing line between the second and third levels? Little Gold was surprised when he invoked a white flame and felt some matchmaker's sensation of heat. His physical body had already reached the peak of invincibility, but he could still feel matchmaker heat. So the temperature of this kind of flame could be imagined. I'm afraid that it would be easy for an ordinary invincible powerhouse to cross over. What a strange palace. Look, the gate is still open. Was this palace here before? Brahma Heart asked. At this moment everyone's eyes were attracted to this dark golden palace. Kangchon was no exception. He felt that the source of that mysterious power was in this palace now. His eyes instantly glazed over as he carefully surveyed the palace. The dark golden palace sat on the second and third levels of the decomposition first, its entire body glowing with light, a circle of light enveloping it, At this moment, Kang Chon's four people stood outside the aperture, observing the palace. Strange, I've been here a few times. There wasn't this palace before. When did this appear? Third Prince Dragon frowned and said, Brother, there are traces of a fight here. At this time, the voice of Little Gold came from not far from the palace gate, but it was this kid who went forward to watch under curiosity. The three of them, Kang Chon, were immediately surprised and hurriedly went to watch. However, just as Kang Chon's Dahon stepped within the circle of light, the Kang Chon hegemony blood within his body could no longer be suppressed. A heavenly hegemonic aura rushed straight up to the sky, and his entire body instantly displayed the Kang Chon hegemony blood's strongest combat state. The powerful force shaking both Brahma Heart and the third prince of the dragon out of the room. What's going on? All three of Xiao Jin's people cried out in shock. High in the air, Kang Chon's entire body erupted with a powerful force, causing the surrounding void to distort a little. This power was infinitely close to shattering the vacuum. I don't know. There's something odd about this palace that makes me involuntarily erupt with the strongest power. You guys be careful, Kang Chon said in a deep voice. At the same time as his words fell, a scorching aura came from within the palace, and then a dozen tall figures were revealed. They were actually a head of flame giants with blue flames around them. Little Gold's trio was instantly stunned. Where did they care about Kang Chon's strange changes, and directly battled with these flame giants. Boom! A flame giant sparred with Xiao Jin, and his body flew out backwards, collapsing on the ground. But he immediately climbed up and charged at Xiao Jin once again. So strong, Xiao Jin froze, and then his eyes suddenly became gloomy. These flame giants were not simple one by one. Each of their strength was at the peak of invincibility, truly powerful and unrivaled. Swish! High in the air, Kang Chon swooped down with a matchless domineering aura, and blasted out with a single punch, his fist power enveloping the 5 flame giants among them, occupying the absolute upper hand. Be careful, these flame giants are not simple. The third prince of the dragon roared as he, like Kang Chon, engaged in a fierce battle with the 5 flame giants among them. The remaining 5 flame giants were divided between Xiao Jin and Fan Xin. Gathering the strength of the 2 of them, they quickly gained the upper hand, and victory was a matter of time. It had to be said that these 15 flame giants were very powerful. If it was anyone else, not to mention entering the palace, it would be good if they could save their lives. But Kang Chon's 4 were not mere mortals. Each of them was infinitely close to the shattering vacuum realm. And although these 15-headed flame giants were powerful, they were ultimately suppressed and killed by them. What powerful flame giants! This palace isn't simple, let's be careful. The third prince of the dragon turned smaller and came to the entrance of the palace, saying in a deep voice. Kang Chon's trio also walked over, and those slain flame giants turned into flying ash and disappeared into the air. Going, looking at the pitch-black palace, purple light flashed in Kang Chon's eyes. He couldn't exit the battle state at all here. But he didn't need to exit. Who knew what other dangers were inside? Of course, he was always at his peak battle strength. The 4 of them were shoulder to shoulder, carefully stepping inside the palace. The palace was dark, but when Kang Chon's 4 people entered, a candle flame around them lit up, dispelling the surrounding darkness and revealing the scene inside the palace. What is that? Suddenly, the crowd was shocked, only to see a greatness not far ahead with its back facing them. It was a giant about 3 zhong tall, surrounded by white flames, holding a long sword burning with blue flames in its hand. This white flame giant's stature was a bit shorter than the previous 15-headed flame giant, but it gave Kang Chon and the others a strong sense of crisis. This was the aura sensation brought about by absolute strength. Be careful, Kang Chon reminded, his eyes as stern as blades, staring closely at this white flame giant. The 3 little Golds also sensed that this white flame giant was not simple. Their expressions were filled with vigilance as they all raised their peak strength. At this time, The white flame giant seemed to sense the arrival of the four, and slightly turned its body. "Foolish ignoramuses! How dare you trespass into the Force God Temple? Death is your only fate." A cold and merciless voice spat out from the mouth of this white flame giant, and in the next moment, the long blade was waved, and the scorching waves of fire transformed into 4 fire dragons rushing to kill, and terrifying power surged throughout the hall. A blood-red killing light erupted from the white flame giant's eyes. Each blade slashed out with unrivaled power, and the surrounding space emitted a snorting sound. "Break the sky." Kang Chon was prepared. The blood saber appeared in his hand as he executed heaven-breaking, a saber meeting the incoming slashes of this white flame giant. Instantly, two unearthly figures holding to divine blades collided in mid-air. Time seemed to stop at this moment as two powerful forces erupted, shattering the surrounding emptiness finally. "Daring to fight hard with my brother, looking for death." A mocking look appeared in Little Gold's eyes when he saw this scene. On the side, the third prince of the dragon and Brahma Heart also had a bashful look on their faces. They naturally knew Kang Chon's strength, especially with the enhancement of that blood blade. Even if the three of them were to join forces, they might not be Kang Chon's opponent. However, the faces of the three immediately froze as a flash of shock appeared in their eyes, only to see that in mid-air, Kang Chon, who was entrapped in unearthly might, suddenly flew out backwards as a whole, spewing out a mouthful of blood in mid-air and fiercely slamming into the wall of the palace behind him. "Brother, brother Dao!" The three little jinns instantly cried out in shock, their faces full of incredulity. It was hard to imagine that powerful Kang Chon, who had erupted with peak power again, had been blown away by this white flame giant with a single slash. "Be careful, it is shattering the vacuum." Kang Chon climbed up, with a trace of palpitations in his eyes. Before he could finish, he sprayed out another mouthful of blood, his face incomparably pale. Inside the great hall, the white flame giant swung his sword once again, and the fierce blade power enveloped the four people. What terrifying strength! Within the palace, Kang Chon's four people were incomparably shocked. This white flame giant was too strong. No one could stop it under a single blade. It was definitely a shattering vacuum-level powerhouse. Everyone together. Facing this level of powerhouse, the third prince of the dragon, Little Gold, and Brahma Heart didn't have any nonsense, and directly teamed up to charge up, unfolding their strongest power. Kang Chon wiped off the purple blood from the corners of his mouth, divine light exploding in his eyes as his body rushed out once again, transforming several times in mid-air, the blood knife in his hand, slashing out hundreds of blazing blade awnings, enveloping the entire space. Knowing the dreadfulness of the white flame giant, Kang Chon learnt his lesson this time, no longer fighting it hard, but instead changing to a wandering fight, cooperating with the three of Little Gold to surround it together. Blasphemers of the gods, death is your only end. Flame-burning sky. Facing the siege of Kang Chon's four, the white flame giant did not limit his panic at all. He snorted coldly. His blade changed again. Hot waves of fire rose up to the sky, and his blade strokes became even more furious. The white flame giant was very powerful. A sword swung out to shatter the void. The terrifying power was like the heavenly thunder divine punishment, filled with the might of destroying the heavens and destroying the earth, causing the four Kang Chon's faces to change drastically. "Everyone be careful. Dragon battle Starfield," the third prince of the dragon shouted, his body surrounded by golden light. And the 9 divine dragons rushed out from within him, suppressing towards the white flame giant in unison. This kind of might was truly powerful, worthy of being the third prince of the dragon. The supreme of the spirit sealing space was true to his name. Seeing the third prince of the dragon's power, Xiao Jin and Fan Xing glanced at each other, also not willing to lag behind, at the same time burst their strongest power.